And welcome everyone to this live. I'm very excited to be here and thrilled to get people logging on and connecting to this live. Today we're going to be talking about unlocking high performance cultures in organizations and in the teams that you work in. So we're expecting quite a few people to join us, and I'm just going to start sharing the first, exactly. This is what we're going to do. And as you connect to this live, please share in the chats where you are logging in from so that we can see who's connecting with us and how everyone is settling in. So my eyes are going left and right as I'm looking for the chats. And hi, Lucy. And yes, please drop where you are in. And as people are settling in, everyone's welcome from France. Great to have you with us. Um, and I'll give a little bit of the time checking in. Today, so I'm Barbara Dewast. I'm one of the lead facilitators and coaches at Performance Consultants. I do a lot of this work and I love this place. And I'm also an associate board member for the International Coaching Federation in the UK, working with the organizations team. So I really believe in that power of coaching in organizations. And look, the world is logging in from Brazil and Nigeria, London, France, Indonesia, um, Croatia, Prague, Italy. This is amazing. I know we're expecting a few hundreds of people, which is fabulous to see the impact that this work can have. From Turkey and Minnesota, Vegas. This is amazing. Okay, welcome, guys. Keep alive on the chats. Lots will be happening in there. We preach what we do. This will be quite interactive and we will be getting you involved and also thinking and doing the work. So today, what are we going to do? We have an hour together and I'm going to be introducing our model around the performance curve. We'll be exploring the different stages of the curve a little bit in depth and get you to reflect on what happens there and the impact that it has. We'll be joined by two amazing guests. So we're going to have Lucy Paterson, who is the Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs at Johnson & Johnson. And we have Tiffany Gaskell, who is the Managing Director at Performance Consultants, and she will share her experience also of experiencing this culture transformation work. There will be opportunity to interact, Q&A at the end, and this is a place where you bring your own reflection and your own work. I'm just connecting with the chat, seeing who's here from Dublin. There's a brilliant space here. So as we get in here, I'd love everyone in their own world to think of what is their goal for this session. What do they want to get out of the next hour together? So just connect with your intention. And once you've got your intention, I'd like you to give yourself a grade. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how present do you intend to be over the next 55 minutes? And by presence, in my world, I call it presence with your body, like physically on kind of looking and being here. Presence in your head with your brain and that thinking space, and also with your heart, kind of listening to your emotions and what's happening here. So give yourself your own grade in your own space, 1 to 10. So 10, I'm fully present, fully engaged, head, heart, and body, and maybe a 1 or a 2 if you're going to be on your emails and do a few things or cook your dinner at the same time. And just notice what grade you're giving yourself and just keep it in mind. Okay, so let's kick it off, and I can see everyone is logging in. So who are we? And who is Performance Consultant? So we were founded 40 years ago by Sir John Whitmore, who is the first person to bring coaching in organizations. And really the aim was to unlock the limitless potential of people in that work and their work and in the changes that they face in organizations. And so alongside the work with organizations around the world, John's vision led to the creation of the GROW model. and which is really one of the most used model in the kind of the coaching world and elsewhere as well. And he also wrote this book, which is the Coaching for Performance book, which I personally love, and it is considered a benchmark of excellence in the industry. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the book at the end. We are also home to the Inner Game, founded by Tim Galway, which is the triangle you can see on the right of this screen. And this is the revolutionary approach to unlocking the potential. And it goes back almost 50 years, and I feel it's really even more relevant today. And really, this equation where you see the P equals P minus I means the performance, your own performance and the performance of your team is equal to its potential minus the interference. So think of that. How does that land? So the performance, and by performance, we also mean the learning and the enjoyment is equal to the potential minus the interference. So this is a little bit about us and our mission. And our mission is evolving as the world is, and really building on our experience over the last 4 decades. What we want to is to inspire a new and radically human philosophy of work, and globally. And as I'm seeing on the chat, we are so global, and that radically human philosophy of work. This is really where we sit in. And the aim is really to maximize performance, the learning, and the enjoyment to unlock the potential of billions of working people. And we do this by transforming leadership cultures, which is why we're going to talk about the performance curve today. Okay, so this was really the intro about us, and where I want to get into the meat of what we do is to show you this performance curve. Brilliant. So some of you might have seen it already, or maybe you're familiar with it from the work that we've done together or from the book. And the way we explore this curve is really, we often start on the left and we look at how the performance picks up. This performance curve is a model that was developed by a performance consultant, and it's based on our work with clients, and it shows how culture impacts performance and the impact of coaching in that performance, in that culture. So we will see how different behaviors, mindset shape these cultures. And after the decades of work with our multinational clients, we see that the closer the culture reflects a coaching mindset, which is what we will discover that is more in that interdependent state, the higher the performance. So if we explore each culture one by one, so there are 4 phases in this performance curve, and I'm going to start with the first one. So right on the left-hand side of this curve. And this is exactly the same thing, different colors. So on this left-hand side, this is what we call impulsive, the impulsive culture. And what I'd love you all to do, and I'm going to use the chat and ask you to experience this with me. And so in an impulsive culture, how we describe it is really the leadership is inconsistent. And the motto here is whatever happens, happens. It's in terms of the cultural characteristics, it's a space where you might be reacting to situations. It feels unpredictable. Often there's little communication, survival mentality, or little development. If we're thinking of the leader's style and impact of what we've observed in this impulsive culture, there's really some inconsistency. It's a bit haphazard. Also, leaders can be short-termist here and gets involved in everything. So there's a fast-paced and it does whatever it takes, which can lead to a lack of vision, a lack of direction, and often confusion or stress, frustration. So as I'm describing this impulsive culture, where the interferences, as you've heard, are quite high, and they're really pushing the potential down. They're pushing the performance to stay low. Imagine you're sitting at the desk of this impulsive culture. And in chat, could you drop what is it like for you? Maybe some of you have been in teams which were impulsive, in organizations which were impulsive. What is it like for you when you work in an impulsive culture? So let's see in the chat what's coming up. And I'm waiting for the chat. I know it takes a few seconds for the world to log on through chat. So think of what is it like for you in this impulsive culture? And yeah, it's more about guessing. Yes, for sure. There's something that shifts a lot and often. I can see some of you have experienced it. It's stressful. There's a lot of movement and change. And I'm gonna, as the chat is coming, I'm gonna feed the second question so I can keep this dynamic. It's tiring and stressful. Yeah, there's instability. Absolutely, Ryan. There's too many unknowns and it keeps on changing. Often I'm noticing I see these cultures in maybe organizations that are growing very fast or that are, at this ramping up space. It's chaotic. There's frustration. Yeah, tiring, successful, leading to anxiety. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I can see. Yeah, you're connecting with what it's like. So what is the leader doing to support this culture? So think of maybe the leaders that you've seen who are supporting this culture, or if you were a leader in an impulsive culture, what are the things that you do as a leader when you're supporting an impulsive culture? It's hard to reach goals, yeah. So the leader will be, yeah, there's emergencies. It pulls you away from achieving your objectives, yes. And you're always moving around and changing. Yeah, the leader gets involved in everything. It can be very stressful. There's a lot to hold. My final question for you guys is, and what's the impact on the team in this impulsive space? What's the impact on the team? So there's lots of distraction. The leader might be a bit blind, I'm hearing. He just emergency, yes. He's covering his own back. Yeah, reacting to situation. Very firefighting. Absolutely. And so let's see the impact on the team. And I even want to go, who's disengaged? Thank you, Christina. Yeah, it's quite tiring. It's demoralizing. You're never too sure where you're going. It's quite, there's no involvement. Yeah, there's some, and I'm going to damage the word from fatalism. So that's me being French. So strained relationships, absolutely. Adrenaline junkies. Yeah, there's also something that could be very exciting here. Absolutely. That's always fast moving. Yeah, team's not a team. There's fear. There's no team. Actually, that's a good point. There's defensiveness and fear. Okay, guys, you're really getting this. So this is the desk of the impulsive culture. Keep those words coming in, and I have an urge to shift because there's beautiful places to explore. So every time we shift to the right, there's an incremental increase of the performance. And when we move one step to the right, the interferences are still strong. The potential starts to lift up a little bit, and the performance as well. It's still, fairly kind of held down by the hierarchical culture. So this dependent place is where the leaders control. That's the key word. And really the words here is I follow the rules and I do as I'm told. That's the motto. So connect with that. And as I'm going to read what it's like, connect with sitting at the desk of this dependent culture. Some of you might have experienced this. So the dependent culture, is in terms of characteristics. I said I follow the rules. You get the task done. Do what you're told. There's little or no autonomy. And there's a strong group identity, low engagement. Also, you're risk averse because you do as you're told. You don't want to get out of that frame. So generally, there's a lack of trust that happens in this dependent culture. And maybe start feeding in the chat what it's like for you, this dependent culture, when you're there. In terms of the leader style and impact, there's control and command. It's the leader who is controlling and commanding, telling you what you do, and really the leader who knows. So there's a very clear hierarchy. It can be quite territorial here. This is my responsibility. This is yours. Transactional as well. And there can be a blame culture. This is where we've seen blame. It's not my fault. It was your task. And there's a real fear of failure as a consequence. And as a result, also the creativity and the initiative are really held into a box, are stifled. So the potential of people are limited. And I'm seeing in the chat what's coming up. There's a lack of ownership. There's silos, absolutely. Keep feeding what this dependent culture is like. Parental leadership. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to keep moving because really I want to move into the space where you guys can explore what happens when this potential picks up and what happens when the performance really starts to shift. In this independent culture, which is one more shift to the right, and as you're seeing on the graph, it really, there's the curve starts to pick up. In this independent culture, it's the place where the leader inspires and the leader empowers as well. And the word here is I am a high performer. I call it the superstars. It's the I. I is important. So maybe start to feed in the chat what it's like if you've been in an independent culture and you've experienced it. What I can describe from the research that we have is, and also from my experience, what I've seen is it's a place where there is a two-way communication and engagement. There's the focus on your own goals above the others. So it's about my goals. And there's this high achievement mentality. As a result, work-life balance is hard. So that's the place where you're always pushing yourself, thriving to be better. But as a result, it could be out of balance. Innovation here is encouraged. And the I really makes a difference. So it's really this place of individual development. The leader's style is delegating. He'll empower individuals to perform. And there's this coaching mindset, which is starting to be acquired between the leader and the person who reports to him, because you enable the individual to achieve their goals and to be accountable. So some feedback is already happening here. So it's that individual transformation. And I'm seeing, yes, greater autonomy. It's competitive, absolutely. And not necessarily collaborative, absolutely, Colette. And there's superficial collaboration, absolutely, or none. Yes. So up or out culture. And I've experienced that. Either you progress and you move up and you get the title and or you leave. Because some people who are not the top performers will be left out and dropped as a consequence. And it can be demotivating for them and confusing, as I'm seeing in the chat from Carolyn, absolutely. So let's shift to this fourth dimension, which we call the interdependent culture, which is really where we focus our work and what we want to bring to the world. And this is the collaborative culture, where really meaning and purpose, there's something bigger up here that unite. And the motto is that we are truly successful together. In terms of the cultural characteristics, there's a high level of trust and care, collaboration. There's a strong coaching culture, that place of listening, asking question, unlocking the potential. There's continual authentic communication and feedback. So diverse views are encouraged, and it's the teams that own their performance. I think the co here is very important, the coaching, the collective, the collaborative. So start to drop in chat what an interdependent culture looks like for you if you've been lucky to experience it. And that will be very inspiring. In terms of the leader style it's collaborative. It's partnering. It's that servant leader's place. And it inspires high performance. It enables great teamwork, commitment, focus on the common good. And there is that vision, that mission, that higher purpose that fosters the community spirit. So I'd love to we're going to have our guests to speak about these culture shifts and how they've experienced them. But I'd love to hear from you in the chat just a few words of what is it like for you when you sit at this desk of this interdependent culture? So imagine you're sitting at the desk of this organization, of this team, which is really in this space. What is it like for you? And I'm seeing psychological safety, compassion, supportive. Yeah, there's engaged employees. Absolutely. Everyone's in. And what is the leader doing? Let's see what is the actions, the behaviors of the leaders. He inspires creativity and innovation. Absolutely. There's no pretending. No, it's a truthfulness space. It's challenge and support. Yeah, we also go out of the comfort zone here. We challenge ourselves. We learn trust and freedom. And there's a brilliant question in there. Please bring it for the Q&A. Yeah. Of is it sustainable over time? There's resilience. Yeah. And what's the impact of this culture on a team? Let's see in chat as Lucy is preparing to join. Yeah. There's no stupid questions. Absolutely. Let's trigger creativity, thoughts together. Trust and openness. Brilliant. So, and there's eagerness to contribute. Yes, less stress because you're, as a leader, you are part of the team. Okay, so I'd love to invite Lucy to join us. I'm going to hide the slides. Oh, brilliant. So that we can have our first guest. And Lucy, welcome.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So first, would you like to introduce yourself? We've got lots of people active looking at us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name's Lucy Paterson, and I'm a senior director within one of the medical technology businesses in Johnson & Johnson in regulatory affairs. I've worked for Johnson & Johnson for almost 24 years in many different positions, and just very excited to be doing something like this today, something a little bit different and something that I'm very passionate about.
Brilliant. Well, we're very happy to have you. Thank you so much for coming here. I'm curious. So how do you know performance consultants? How did you? What's the history between the connections for you?
Yeah, so my first interaction with performance consultants is probably about 18 months ago. Actually, within J&J, we had a self-starting team of people who were enthusiastic about coaching and wanting to bring that democratized coaching into J&J. So we kind of created a little perpetuating team and partnered with PCI really to try to create what might that opportunity look like within an organization to bring that leader coach mindset and enable us to transition more swiftly into that interdependent culture. So I started off doing the bronze certification. That was actually a program that we did through J&J. And I'm currently doing my silver certification at the moment. So
Brilliant. Brilliant. So the certification that Lucy is referring to is the tracks to becoming a coach and the journey there. So well done, Lucy, and fantastic to hear about that. And I'm curious, just to link back to the performance curve. How many of these different cultures have you worked in, and maybe what was it like for you?
I think I've seen aspects of all of them. I don't think I've ever been in one place that has been just purely one type of culture. But I have had exposure or seen leadership go into all 4 areas actually. So maybe that's just having such a long history in leadership positions, but yeah, I've seen it all happening.
And I love that, because once you've experienced the impulsive, you know where you want to go, right? There's something about knowing where the cake is sweeter.
Yeah, exactly right. And when I've seen that impulsive behavior, where you see leaders who are being very reactive, often people who want to be the heroes with a solution, swooping in to save the day, when quite often their apathy has really caused the problems in the first place. So
Yeah.
I find it very stressful listening to some of the words that others are using, and really it's something that I've moved away from when I've been exposed to it.
Yeah. And what do you think? So I'm hearing you've been into the 4 and noticed it. What do you think makes a real difference in terms of shifting the cultures? So maybe at Johnson and Johnson, what do you think really makes that difference?
So I think it's multifaceted. It can depend, in my experience, it can depend on sometimes how long a leader has been in place, how willing they are to adapt, and also what the call is from their team. So I think as well, when a team is asking to be led in a certain way, that there really is an opportunity for that team to make that known and help shape from within, creating that dynamic that requires a leader to evolve and behave differently to get the results that as a team you're really looking for. So I think it not only comes from the top, the experience, the training, the mindset that's there, but it takes a willingness for everybody to want to experience leadership in a different way.
And when you say that willingness, I'm connecting to openness as well. And there's something about that emotional intelligence place of understanding, okay, what does the system need and how are we going to evolve and adapt to work with each other.
Yeah. And being vulnerable as well, being able to say, this is something I'm practicing, or this is something I've heard about, but I don't know how it looks. So I think getting engaged in having some of those conversations around how might that experience be, is that something you've seen before, and engaging with team members and with peers and other stakeholders to understand more about what it might feel like to lead in an environment that really takes a different mindset with it.
And yeah, and what I'm loving it and what I'm hearing is the choices that we make as leaders, as when you comes up and down, and actually we all make a choice and are responsible for that. And when did you, if I bring it back to you, when did you realize the impact you could have on your culture? What was the moment you realized that?
Probably when, I did some coaching activities a number of years ago. And I think that was really the moment when I realized how much of that potential in others you can unlock by leading with a coaching mindset. So having experienced that impulsive and that dependent culture of where very much command control, you'll do this and this is when I want it by, and then being able to take a step back and really think of asking the questions that help an individual unlock the answers themselves. So by getting, I guess, by taking myself through some of that learning and then finding the opportunities to practice it, and seeing the results that happened, that's when I realized that this is a leadership style that really fits with me. It's something that I find that as a natural servant leader, it really works well, actually being able to see the transformation in others as they realize that they do actually have the answer and that they can take the solution forward, rather than relying on coming to their manager and asking them, I have a problem, what's the answer? So it takes slightly longer, but the results of that just paid in dividends year after year, because people are looking and seeking to learn and challenge themselves more and differently.
I love what you're saying, and there's a bit of a myth sometimes that yes, the coaching leadership style takes longer. I don't have time. Leaders, we don't have time. But what you're telling me here, Lucy, is actually in the long term, it's saving a lot of time because the people that what I'm hearing, been doing this with, feel empowered and kind of are now running their own work and their own feeling, empowered to lead in their own dimensions and areas.
Yes, and what's even better is actually when you see people then doing that to other members of their team, and talking using the same frameworks and the same questions, really, because they've felt the benefit, and that's something that then gets passed on. And I think that's when you start seeing those glimpses of interdependence really coming out. It's that when you see others behaving in the same ways.
And it ripples. That's what I'm hearing. It's kind of you're leading by example, Lucy. It's very inspiring. I'm hearing some of these successes, and when it ripples, and you're seeing others do it. And maybe would you like? We're going to invite Tiffany in a few minutes, but we'd love also to be real and connect with what were the challenges for you.
So, to me, the challenge is really, especially in a large organization that's very multifaceted, is there's a lot of leaders with a very long service in the organization. And I think when we're trying to drive a culture change, we realize it takes each leader to agree to make that shift because they recognize the benefits. And changing a culture takes at least as long as the culture took to actually build in the first place. So when we try to bring, from different angles, trying to reach people where they are and take them each on their journey to seeing leadership in different forms and experiencing the successes of those. So I think for me, the main challenge is in an organization the size where I work is there's many different layers of leadership. There's many people who have built up that leadership style over many years, who consider themselves to be successful in that style. And it's about trying to infiltrate then suggestions of how things might be done differently or better, and allowing people that safe space to practice.
Yeah. Change, what I'm hearing. It takes the infiltration that you're talking about and the practice, because there is something to be said about definitely the more we practice, the more we experience it, the stronger we feel it and we connect with it. Lucy, thank you so much. Please stay with us. I know you'll be in the background. Tiffany is going to come back, and then we're going to have a Q&A where all of you in the public joining us, listening, will have some of your questions answered. So Tiffany, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, lovely to have you today. Would you like to introduce yourselves? We've got lots of people from everywhere in the world here with us. I'll let you introduce.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. So my name is Tiffany Gaskell, and I'm the Managing Director of Performance Consultants and the co-founder. And the bit that I want to get into this introduction as well is that, as well as having had a 20-year profession of coaching, I was a banker before this, and I just saw someone put in the chat that we have to measure the impact, and I totally agree with you that the whole everything that we're doing needs to be fed through and reflected back to the organization so that people can understand what the benefit is, because it's such a huge benefit to people, performance, and the planet.
People, performance, planet. Strong words. Absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany. I'd love to go back to a bit the genesis of, how did this performance curve develop? And what's the history of it, if you want to share a little bit?
So I remember, way back when I was a banker, I was sitting on the trading floor at Credit Suisse Financial Products, which was the derivatives house where I worked. I was in London, and I've been working in London and New York, and I just handed in my notice, and one of my friends called me up and they said, listen, have you heard about this new thing called coaching? I So this was in 2000. And I hadn't. And they said, well, there's an article in the Financial Times today. And it is all about this lady who, she was a small business owner in New York. She had a shoe shop and she wanted to, have more, grow. And she wasn't able to. But then she got a coach. And within 5 years, she had 57 shoe shops across the States.
Oh.
So when he told me that story, I thought, wow, there I was. There I was sitting in this bank. And the irony of it was that in this bank, we were like the top performers in the bank. So we were only a tenth of the global workforce, but we were bringing in 70% of group profits. So we were really knocking it out of the park. And the thing that happened, and it was so much fun and, so much enjoyment. The thing that happened was that we had a merger. And that was when I found out that leaders didn't know how to lead.
Mm.
So essentially overnight, the lights went out. And someone said on the chat, Monohar, I think you said that, it's like being blind in that impulsive culture. And, there's no point. I mean, I think you're at the same place as me because it was really like that. And so when I heard the story about this coaching, I was like, oh, my goodness, we need to unlock the potential of this amazing organization. And so right there, like I'm at the bottom of my screen here, let's say that's the x-axis and that's the y-axis. So it's like that performance was low and it needed to go up here. And that is the performance curve. So right there, when I heard about coaching, and I was so excited about it. I was leaving to do an MBA. Funnily enough, on the MBA, nothing about this, nothing about, mindset and behavior of the leaders and things like that. So yes, that was the birth of this idea.
I didn't know that story, and I absolutely love it. And I love how also it's anchored in reality, and things that you've observed. And I guess because from the work that I do, I often get asked, so how do you create? Because there's one thing, the impulsiveness, we've seen it, we lived it, we know how this comes about. But how do you create that interdependent culture where the performance really starts to pick up? And what do you think are the key ingredients there?
Well, again, I'm thinking of my experience of this. And so having come into this area out of my MBA and trained as a coach, came into the arena of coaching. And what I saw was so much potential, which needed to be landed, if you like. So it's like, okay, so what does that mean? And so we set about doing this, joined up with Sir John Whitmore in 2004 and David Brown. We set about doing this in the new iteration of Performance Consultants. And what it was that we had the intention of bringing this to the world, but were we doing it for ourselves? And just because, we were working in this industry, I think we got maybe complacent, or we just thought that it was all happening, but it wasn't. So in about 2012, we did like a culture survey and we ran for the hills because it was awful. And it's so interesting because all of those behaviors that I'd learned in banking, I was bringing into the workplace.
Your own, yeah.
So even though I changed my direction, changed my purpose, or found my purpose, I would say, actually, yes, I was recreating, that culture. And so, and people were finding it really stressful. And so I had to do so much work on myself in order to really recalibrate my leadership so that I can create a place where people flourish. And I would say that, Lucy talked about servant leadership, and servant leadership really is a wonderful way of summing up what the skills teach. It is about getting out of the way of lowering appearance. If I've got a negative belief about someone or a limited belief about someone, that is going to show through. And that person will not be able to perform at their highest potential. So it's a constant checking in and recalibrating, and the work never stops.
Yeah. I'm loving what you're saying, something around awareness. So raising the awareness of the team. So doing that survey, actually that was a light bulb moment in 2012. And then you're saying, also sharing about the continuous work. Actually, it's a check-in. How am I showing up as a leader? How am I believing in that potential of that person that works for me? What's happening on inside me when I show up in my leadership skills? Amazing. Yeah. Very inspiring, Tiffany. And what would be an advice you would give to so that lots of people listening to us, and they're probably thinking, how am I going to do this? What are the things that I can do to help my team, my organizations shift? So what would be advice you would give to maybe your past self or to people in this room?
Yeah, I would say that, so John Whitmore always used to say, coaching is about awareness and responsibility. And my daughter, when she was 4, used to go around quoting back at John, life is about awareness, responsibility, and things what you want. And the thing is that once you have, it's so key, because once you have that awareness, then you have choice. And so I would say that, even going into coronavirus, as we were going into coronavirus, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to change everything that we do. And I very clearly saw a signpost up ahead that said, okay, there's a signpost of fear, like you can panic about this and run around like a nutter, or you can trust in your team, trust that you will all find the answers and come through together. And that's what we did. And it was the most extraordinarily wonderful growth opportunity, for us as within the company, in the midst of such a nightmare environment.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm loving what you're bringing around self-awareness. Generating that awareness, and then the responsibility, the choice that we make as human beings. And if I had to add, for me, one of the ways to create that is to coach and to be coached. Because that's how we gain awareness of ourselves as well. And sometimes it's about these questions that make us think, that make us generate that awareness. I would love, Tiffany, stay with us. I would love to create a little bit of awareness for the participants in the room and for them to go back. So I want to share the performance curve again and ask everyone in the room to, in their own worlds, to think of where are they now on this performance curve? Where are they operating in? And just put yourself in your world. Am I independent, interdependent, or where are you? And once you've placed yourself, think of where is it that you want to be? And this is a trick question, because you might want to be in a different space, but where is it that you want to be? And once you've got that in check, and I have Tiffany, you disappeared, but Tiffany for me is with us here in this conversation of my question to you all, and let's drop this into chat. What is an action, something that you could do that would help you move towards where you want to go? So Tiffany has just shared a few ingredients, a few things that has, for her, made the shift and helped her see. What are the things that you could do? And let's drop in chat so that we can use this collective intelligence space of and I know the chat will take a while to pop up. So yeah. So let's see in chat actions or steps that you could do to help you move into the culture where you want to go. And I'm hearing self-awareness is a big one. And checking in with the mindset, intention. Yeah, checking in, that self place. And Tiffany, I don't know if you can come back with me here on the screen, and maybe even Lucy. And as the chat is coming, this is really a space for us together to reflect on What are the ingredients of this interdependent culture? People are feeding into chat. Trying hard not to talk, just to listen actively. Yeah, maybe what's worked for you, Lucy, in terms of creating an interdependence?
I think one of the key things is not staying still. So keeping that intention to always be evolving and trying to exhibit the behaviors that I want to become habits, with the hope that rubs off on others as well, because it's to move everybody forward at the same time is pretty difficult, that
Yeah.
from the change curve. But I think observing different styles, challenging my own thinking, trying to think from the perspective of where is that other person coming from in that style, and really trying to understand that, because I think when you understand the differences as well, then you have a better ability to be able to help people get to where they need to get to. So again, using that coaching, but in a leadership setting, and trying different things on, experimenting with different things, but being able to stay authentic in yourself.
Yeah, and as Tiffany was saying, it's that doing it over and over again, keep working at it. Tiffany, any thoughts, maybe things that are coming up in the chat that are resonating with you?
Well, I'm just loving, what I'm seeing here. I mean, high levels of trust. Trust actually,
Yeah.
this is fear is the greatest interference to all this. And we've identified that, over and over again in our studies. And trust is key. So trusting yourself, trusting your team. And I think there's also something about being open and vulnerable, when sharing different perspectives. And I'm really talking about feedback here. I mean, feedback's got such a charged word these days, isn't it? But actually, it's really just two different perspectives, people coming together and saying, this is what I thought. From my perspective, this is what happened from your perspective, and let's learn from it. Rather than, the blame culture is something that covers up so much learning, takes away so much possibility to innovate and learn from mistakes.
Yeah, so feedback, key ingredient of interdependent culture. So, and you've just given an example, Tiffany. How does it happen, the feedback? What's the spin on it?
The spin on it is really showing up, being authentic, and creating a safe space, like and having a conversation, just a normal conversation. It is, and it's a wonderful thing to do. I've, things that I've been so terrified of saying to someone. What I need to do is I need to gather myself together, trust in that person, and just share my perspective. And having set the the parameters for that, in terms of that I'd love to have a heart-to-heart kind of conversation sort of thing, and that it is just my perspective, it is not truth.
Yeah, I love it that's how it lands with me. What's there? And then there's curiosity in what you say of what's the other side. I want to open the chat, the comments to Q&A, and offer, if you have any questions, please drop them into chat. We have, maybe just under 10 minutes to answer your questions. There was one earlier on, I don't know if you guys captured it, is on the measuring.
Yes.
I don't know if, and Tiffany, you picked up on that, or maybe Lucy, how do we measure cultures and success of it? What do you think?
I think there are lots of different ways to measure, and it must be measured. So, and I know, Lucy, you feel the same, because we've talked about this, haven't we? So there's everything from scientifically validated studies with a control group to let's see, engagement surveys. What changes, as people, as leaders learn new skills. So what we're talking about here, in Lucy's case is Lucy's a transformational leader. She's bringing those coaching skills into what she's doing, and she is creating opportunities for people to learn and develop 365 days of the year. And that there is a huge unlocker of potential and innovation.
Yeah.
And Lucy, you've
Yeah,
got
what is your Lucy? Yeah.
I think it's like you say, is there's a range of ways to measure it. They can be very soft. It depends quite often on how someone feels in a circumstance. So being able to extract that from people's thoughts and feelings and how they're exhibiting, I think is important. And in organizations, that's something that we often need to do by way of getting the survey of voice of the customer, trying to find opportunities where people can use reflection and set intention as well on, here's what I learned, here's what I want to do next with it. So I think as we go through conversations around different performance points that might happen through the year, they're great opportunities to really sit down and focus on who you're leading and what they need from you and how they want to show up. And also using that feedback by way of suspending judgment and taking the opportunity really to hear the words without introducing the feelings, and getting that chance to create that alliance going forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And I'm hearing that, and I'm watching the chat at the same time, and I want to empower you, both of you as well. If there's something that you want to pick up, there's lots in there. There was a question earlier on around is it sustainable, an interdependent culture? And I'm looking at Tiffany smiling. I think that's what are your thoughts there? How do you sustain it, keep it alive?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, that question, because it's like sometimes I think, oh, we're there, that's it, and then something happens. So it's always that question of continuing to be mindful. In ancient Greek, there was that idea of hubris, not thinking you've got it all sorted, because then you certainly don't.
Yeah, I'm hearing growth mindset, Tiffany.
Yes.
Know that there's always more, and then we can always grow, we can always learn and evolve. That's Carol Dweck. Yeah. I'm Lucy, any thoughts on sustaining, keeping it alive? Because the organization is huge, right? And people change and evolve, and
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing as well. That's where it comes from within. And I saw a question in the chat as well that was about how do you build that trust in a coaching conversation?
mm-hmm.
And I think the kind of the sustaining and the trust really go hand in hand. So if as you're working with people and having the conversations and taking the opportunity to establish trust through how do you want me to show up, and what do you want me to do if these circumstances come up? So I find that the trust is really built by hearing what the other person needs from you, and when they see you exhibiting that, then that's how trust grows and builds. So it's about being honest, being vulnerable, being transparent, suspending judgment, and then taking that opportunity then to build. And I find there's a real exponential growth then in the conversations that happen, because people are more willing to open up and let go and really show up as their true selves. Mm-hmm. So the trust that builds sustainability, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, Lucy, I just think you did such a fantastic job of coming back with these new skills and recontracting. So it's like, okay, so, this is going to be different. How do you want me to show up? What an amazing question. If we all asked our team that question, how incredible that would be. I just want...
Yeah, no,
sorry,
go ahead.
Jeffrey asked a question. I wanted to respond to it, if that's all right. It's about questions about how awareness provides choice.
Yeah.
And The thing about that is, if we're not aware of something, we can't change it, right? We literally cannot change it, and that is one of the reasons why the performance curve, is so important. Because what we're doing is we're reflecting to organizations and people in organizations and saying, okay, so here's a model. Where are you on this? And from people just seeing that, they suddenly realize that actually, oh my goodness, we're here. And if we had choice, now that we're aware of that, we'd like to be there.
Absolutely. And I hear what's resonating for me. It's not, so we are aware and then we have a choice. The choice isn't always easy, but there is a choice. Whereas when you don't have awareness, you can't choose because you don't know. So it's not because we have choice that it's the easy route. I think that's something that sometimes we think, oh, because I know I can. Well, it's difficult sometimes choosing the right thing. It takes effort and resilience. The chat is bursting with questions and engagement. It's amazing. What's resonating for me is how much this is important to a lot of people. And I think the testimony of all the comments and what is coming up here is maybe there's a question around the curve of someone being in a, maybe one of the earlier stages of the curve. Can you just jump to interdependent? And maybe have you experienced that, or do you think it's more of a gradual process?
The interesting thing about the performance curve is it's actually built on the human development model. And so it is about, people who, as we grow up, we go through stages. So when we come into the world, impulsive, dependent on parents, then independent teenage years, and then interdependent. And that is our state of, being as an adult. And so there are things when you're in a dependent world, so there will be lots of rules, there will be lots of people following the rules and doing what they're said. And what that shift into independent is really important, because there are things like goal setting, people standing for what they want to achieve, that then will contribute to the next culture of interdependence. So it's the ingredients from all of them, if you like, coming along and threading together.
Very clear. Thank you for that. I'm aware of time and I want to respect everyone's, hour. So we have 2 more minutes. And what I have is a very short slide to offer a few places of growth or next steps for people who do want to move. And so if you want to know more about this performance book, you can go on Amazon and purchase the book. And I showed it earlier on. It's here. I bought it on the high streets. You can find it in shops. It's really one of the only books you can find everywhere in bookshops. You can also, if you want to upskill and learn about these skills for yourself, for your teams, join one of the programs. And there's one coming up in August, which is a coaching for performance program. And I know I facilitate some of them. I really recommend them. It's an amazing space. And if you want to do this work with the organization, with your team, you can absolutely speak to us. So there's an email address there, which is info@performanceconsultants.com. I would love to invite our 2 guests back to thank them, to say thank you so much, Lucy, and thank you so much, Tiffany, for your insights, your wisdom, for bringing this to the world. There's a huge need for it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you. And I feel you guys have now awareness of what is possible. And I'm generating your responsibility of asking you in the audience, what are you going to do now that you know all of this? I wish you a lovely end of day, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Goodbye, everyone.